Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us for this week's Thursday with AARP Wisconsin. I am Amber Miller, your hostess. And of course, before we get started with our guests, just a couple updates. As always, you can always check out the AARP Wisconsin website for information on upcoming events, advocacy, COVID vaccine information, and you can visit us at aarp.org/WI. Also, please make sure to check out the Community Connection page. This is information on volunteer opportunities, possibly within even your own neighborhood, or volunteer opportunities that you can create for your neighborhood. So all that information is below, along with AARP Friendly Voice Initiative, which once again is a free program. You could be any age. You do not need to be an AARP member, and you could put a request in for yourself or for a loved one to receive a friendly voice phone call, which is one of our trained AARP staff, or I'm sorry, volunteers. So if you're just looking for a friendly voice on the other end, please go to the website below or the phone number 1-888-281-0145. Also, even though we haven't been doing a lot of in-person events, you can still consider volunteering with us. We'd love for you to join the AARP Wisconsin volunteer team. If you're looking for additional information on the opportunities or to fill out an application, you can go to the website below, aarp.org/I want, and then the number 2. So I want to volunteer. All your information then will be directed to the AARP Wisconsin office, and we will connect with you about opportunities available throughout the state of Wisconsin. So today, we always love to have the AARP Wisconsin advocacy team on because their show is full of such great and valuable information. So today, I want to welcome Lisa Lampkins. Hi, Lisa.
Hi, Amber.
Good to
Happy
see
to be
you.
here.
Yes, thank you. And you're going to be talking about an interesting topic, but I think a lot of people might not even know that it is Social Security's 86th birthday, and hopefully I said that right. So happy birthday to Social Security.
Yeah, I mean, 86 years that this program has really been helping people. And, it's too bad we're not taping this in the office or in a studio because it would have been an excellent
Yeah.
excuse to buy some cake. So I really encourage people to, grab a cupcake. The Social Security's birthday is actually on Saturday. So we are celebrating a little bit early, but any excuse for cake is good with me. And Social Security is a great program to celebrate.
Absolutely. And Lisa, I know we're going to be talking about the myths of Social Security because there's a lot of information out there that maybe people have read that might not be true, or someone like me and you who aren't to the age of Social Security yet, but maybe have some questions or some concerns about the program a little bit. So I know Social Security was created in the aftermath of the 1929 stock market crash and the Great Depression. So this weekend, of course, August 14th, as you said, an excuse to eat some cake marks the 86 years that people have been depending on this program. So Lisa, who benefits from Social Security?
Yeah, well, there really is this recognition that we've had people who were aging and then all of a sudden just really didn't have any way to, continue to live with some dignity. So Social Security helps about 60 million people across this country.
Wow.
That includes 1.2 million Social Security beneficiaries in Wisconsin. Now that's total Social Security beneficiaries. About 923,000 are retirees. And that's the interesting thing because you're probably thinking, Amber, I thought everybody who got Social Security was retired.
I did think that
I
you
know.
are correct.
A lot of people think that.
Yeah.
At AARP, we actually like to call Social Security a family income protection program.
Mm.
The bulk of Social Security benefits do go to retirees, but they also go to the families of retirees. They might go to surviving spouses. They might go to children. They might go to disabled workers and their families. There, might be dependents of deceased workers. So there are a lot of people who benefit from the program. It's really the best anti-poverty program we've ever had because it keeps a lot of seniors out of poverty.
Mhm.
At the same time, the benefits themselves, they're not ginormous. It's not enough to live on solely. It's about close to almost $19,000 for an average annual benefit in Wisconsin.
Mhm.
But I will say Social Security is particularly important for women and for people of color. Amber, I know there's a huge wealth gap when it
Yes,
comes to, white workers versus Black and Latino
correct.
workers.
Mhm.
Social Security helps that, particularly because people of color tend to work in jobs that don't have retirement plans. They
Mhm.
tend to be lower wage. So Social Security is extremely important. And for women, it's also incredibly important. Women earn less than men. They tend to take time out of the workforce for caregiving. And Social Security helps because women also tend to live longer. So, it really is a benefit to nearly every family in this country. That's a super long answer to say everybody benefits.
And it's interesting you say that, Lisa, because I guess I didn't put two and two together because my mother does receive widow's benefits and has received them when her husband passed away about 12 years ago. And I can tell you, my mom worked part-time at a bakery, has no savings, no retirement. So I do know those widow's benefits has been like life-changing in order for her to pay her bills. So thank you for clarifying that because when she talks to me about it, it's a kind of a different comment. So we actually, okay, so we have a comment from Arlene. It really helped my brother when he was widowed with an 11-year-old daughter. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's the kind of thing people don't really think about. And my family had a similar situation.
Mhm.
My grandfather died, and I had an uncle who was only 16 at the time. And my grandmother had never worked outside of the home. And so those benefits, they really do help. And that's why, Social Security isn't just, oh, we're giving all this money to, older retired people. It is helping people, it is helping families all across this country.
Absolutely. So if you're just joining us, we are here with Lisa Lampkins with AARP Wisconsin. We're celebrating Social Security 86th birthday. So if you don't have a slice of cake, that's okay because the official birthday is Saturday. And we're going to be talking a little bit more. Lisa's going to get more kind of the nitty gritty of myths of Social Security, which we already kind of talked about one. So many people think that 65 is the magic age. My mother has been counting down because she does think it's the magic age that they finally get to retire and collect Social Security. But Lisa, you say this is myth number one, that Social Security retirement is 65. So what's the deal with that?
Well, it's kind of a myth. It really was something that was true for a super long time that kind of became a myth. When Social Security was created in 1935, 65 was set at the age of eligibility. However, that changed in the early 80s when the program was overhauled. And at that time, the full retirement age was raised to help reduce Social Security's costs. Now, that increase in the full retirement age is being phased in over time. And the idea of this full retirement age is important. It's a specific term, and it really means the age when you qualify for 100% of your Social Security benefit. So the full retirement age has been gradually increasing from 65 to 67. And it's increasing so slowly, like every year it increases kind of by 2 months.
Mm.
Right now it's age 66, and then it's going to keep increasing so that it's going to settle in at age 67 for anybody born after 1960. So, Amber, you and
Yeah.
I are looking at age 67
Okay.
for our
Shoot.
full
Right.
benefits. Now, the good news is you can still take early retirement at age 62 from Social Security, but you do get reduced benefits, and those benefits, decrease every year. So, I will just say as an aside, eligibility for Medicare does remain age 65.
60. And then Lisa, I know I think it's yearly. I might be wrong. We get like a letter or a document from Social Security in the mail stating, you know, X amount of dollars that I've put in, and this would be what my benefits are if I choose to retire early or at a different age. Is that a document, if this is the first time somebody's even hearing about this, like, is that something they should contact Social Security about so they can kind of get used to what the information is?
Well, we used to get that every year, and
Uh-oh.
then Social Security stopped doing it, and then they did it for a little
Ah,
bit, and then they stopped doing it
okay.
again.
Mhm,
As with so many things, they've really gone online, and they are encouraging people to create what's called a My Social Security account. You can go to Social Security's website, which is ssa.gov, and set up your Social Security account. And I would really encourage
mhm,
anybody of any age who's doing that, you know, right now to just go get that thing set up, because that's where you track to make sure that Social Security has all of your earnings correct. That it goes back to, you know, I started working at age 16 and it'll say I earned whatever $800 that year. You
mhm.
know, every year it shows what your earnings are. And since your final Social Security benefit is based on what you earn over your lifetime, you'll want to make sure that they have that information correct. You from that spot you can review your benefits, you can file for Social Security when it's time, all sorts of things. So I really do encourage people to go check that out.
I will be because I'm embarrassed to say I didn't know that it wasn't coming in the mail. I was wondering why I have not received one in a while, so I will
Right.
definitely do
We
that. I
have
always
been
found it
fighting.
interesting.
Well, actually, people of a certain age get it if they don't have a account set up.
Okay.
But we've been fighting to kind of get that back
Mhm.
because when you used to get those, you actually look at it and pay attention.
Correct.
So there's that.
Correct. Well, I will be, going to that website immediately after this, broadcast. So Lisa, so no matter what age you are when you're taking your benefits, one of the best things about Social Security is that you can't outlive your benefits, and that includes something called, I believe it's COLA, COLA. So myth number 2 is all about COLA, and, what is that?
Well, you know, you're right. COLA, it is the COLA. It's the cost of living adjustment that happens every year. And for the longest time, people thought it could only go up. That Social Security beneficiaries were guaranteed to see an increase every year. Social Security is great because it is supposed to be adjusted annually to keep pace with inflation. But that only happens actually when there is some inflation.
Mhm.
If there's no inflation, then there's no COLA. And
Okay.
that has actually happened three times in recent memory in 2010, 2011, and 2016. Over the past few years, we've had some increases, and there are certainly anticipated to be an increase for 2022. um, the cost of living adjustment happens automatically. You know,
Okay.
Congress doesn't have to approve it. They're not improving or not approving an increase to those benefits. It's just something that happens within the formula. But it is good to know that we're not necessarily guaranteed that it will happen.
And so this kind of next one, I'm going to put you on the spot a little true or false because I think I've heard this one probably over like the last 10 years of just, you know, when you're older, it might not be there. So true or false? So is Social Security, is it going broke?
Well, you're absolutely right that we hear this all the
Yes.
time, Amber. So Social Security is going broke. That is false. But people are saying that. They're saying, "Oh, you're
Mhm.
young. Social Security is not going to be there for
Correct.
you. It's going broke." And when people say something's going broke, for me, it makes me think the well is totally dry. If I'm broke, that means I don't have anything to
Mhm.
draw on. But Social Security is not going to go broke as long as workers and employers continue to pay those payroll taxes. It was always set up as a pay as you go program. So the revenue coming in from those taxes largely covers the benefits that are going out. It's not to say there aren't challenges, there are, and everybody is
Mhm.
certainly aware of them. For a long time, Social Security collected more in taxes than it was paying out.
Mhm.
But we now have a retiree population that has been growing faster than workers, and people are living longer. So the system is starting to pay out more than it takes in. Um, but we actually did plan for that a little bit, right? The
Mhm.
baby boomers turning 65 was not actually a surprise to a lot of people. They're like, hey, here's a whole, a whole generation, a whole group of people. Maybe we should plan for some of this. So the money that's been sort of gathering in the trust fund was to help pay for the baby boomers' retirement. And that trust fund at the end of 2020 still has $2.9 trillion in it, right? 2.9 trillion. Now we're starting to use that money. So that's projected to run out in 2035. However, and this is the key point, that is just the trust fund that's projected to run out. Money is still coming in Social Security in those payroll taxes. Social Security can still pay nearly 80% of benefits at that time. However, we need Congress to act because that's kind of right about when I'm going to retire. And I don't want 80% of my benefits. I always tell our volunteers, I want 100% of my benefits. So we do need Congress to tweak the program now so that you and I and everybody else can get those benefits that we have earned.
And yeah, I'm learning so much from this because before I started AARP, I don't know if I thought about retirement as much as I do now working for AARP, but also the importance of Social Security, not just for myself, but for other people. We have to make sure that we're also looking out for one another. So when we open our check stub and people are like, why are all these taxes, taken out of my check? It's for these reasons to ensure that Social Security is paid into. So that's valuable information. And Lisa, so here's something that I also thought was true because you're schooling me, and I appreciate this. So myth number 4: so members of Congress don't pay into Social Security. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's absolutely a myth. And I wanted to bring that up because anytime we go out and we talk to people about Social Security, they always say, well, Congress isn't going to do anything to fix the program because they don't care about it because they're not in it. They don't pay into Social Security. And that's kind of another thing that used to be true a long time ago, but is not true anymore. Since 1984, which was a long time ago because it was the year I graduated from high school, right? Ancient history here. Since 1984, members of Congress and all federal workers have been in the Social Security system and they are paying into the Social Security system. So any member of Congress elected since 1984 is in Social Security. They used to have, their own civil service retirement system, and they didn't pay into Social Security. And just like other people, there is still federal retirement program and Social Security, just like, a lot of private workers, they might have their own 401ks or their own pension program at the company they work for, and you still get Social Security. But members of Congress, they do have a stake in the game because members of Congress do pay into Social Security.
And in 1984, I was just doing the math. I was in second grade, so that was
that
a
doesn't
very
make
long
me
time
feel
ago.
old at all, Amber.
Well, you're right. Maybe I should not have said that one. At least I was
That's
born.
fine.
At least I was born.
I'm fine. I'm fine with that. 1984 was a good year.
It was a good year. The 80s were good.
The 80s were good.
So Lisa, another myth. So myth number 5: the government raids Social Security to pay for other programs. This one I hear a lot during election time.
All the time, right? They're like, hey, we wouldn't have a problem with the deficit if the government wasn't raiding Social Security. They're taking it. We're not going to have Social Security benefits, blah, blah, blah. But here's the thing. First of all, Social Security does not add to the deficit. We're going to hear a lot of talk coming soon from elected officials with, this deficit's out of control. We got to crack down. We got to cut Social Security and Medicare benefits. Nothing could be further from the truth. Social Security is a separate, self-funded program. There are actually 2 trust funds that are part of Social Security. One is the big one that's for retirees, and there's a separate trust fund for workers with disabilities. Neither one of them have ever been part of the federal government's general fund. So I kind of want to just lay that out there first. However, it is true that the federal government does borrow from Social Security. Now, how does that work? And why is that not stealing from Social Security? Well, By law, that Social Security tax revenue that we were talking about, those those FICA taxes that are
Mhm.
coming out of our check, by law, that revenue is invested in special US Treasury bonds. As with any kind of Treasury bond, the government can spend those proceeds on a variety of programs, on whatever they want. Just like private bondholders, if
Mhm.
a company or an organization issues bonds, if a city issues bonds, that gives them money to raise so they can do something else with it. But just like any other bondholder, Treasury has to pay that money back to the Social Security program, and they have to pay it back with interest. And then Social Security uses those, bonds, those securities
Yeah.
to pay the benefits. This kind of fuels the notion and this idea that the government's raiding, Social Security and leaving it with nothing but empty IOUs. But to be honest, the government has always made full repayment on any of those bonds that have been due, and the interest on those increase Social Security assets. And by a pretty significant amount. It was actually about $80 billion in 2019 alone. So, that's kind of a lot of money.
Yeah.
The other thing I'll also say is, people are like, oh, well, the government won't be able to pay this all back. Well, they don't have to pay it all back at once. It's
Mhm.
not at one time. They come due in little chunks, and then it gets paid back. So the government really is not stealing from Social Security. There's not a little lockbox with your name on it that says, here's Amber's money, here's Lisa's money,
Yeah.
here's Jim's money. The
Mhm.
It's there for sort of the good of everyone. Think about it, just like a bank. When you put your money in the bank, if you have savings in the bank, that money is not socked away in a little bucket with your name on it. They
Mhm.
use that money to give a loan to somebody else. So it works very
Correct.
similarly.
And it looks like we have a question from Jim. So what can people do to make sure their members of Congress are aware of how critically important it is to make Social Security strong and solvent for current retirees and all generations going forward? That's a great question.
It is a good question, Jim. And I really appreciate also the emphasis on future beneficiaries. A lot of times we hear, oh, Social Security, the people who are getting it are greedy geezers. My experience
Mm.
is, that is not true at all. Our volunteers, our members, when we talk to them, they're concerned that it's going to be their kids and their grandkids who don't get Social Security, and they want to make sure that Social Security is there for them. It is very important at all times to let your elected officials, your members of Congress, know how important Social Security is. Let them know how it make sure that you can continue to pay the mortgage payment, that you can continue to, take a trip to see your grandkids. Um, I think letting members of Congress know the specifics of how important Social Security is and without it, what it would mean, that's very key. And you don't have to wait for, some big Social Security fight or some big piece of legislation. Any time is a good time to remind your elected officials the importance of this program.
And Lisa, that kind of comes to the next question, which is there any current legislation around Social Security that people should be aware of?
Yeah, there is. There's kind of this, there's something been floating around, and I brought this up because I just had a volunteer ask me about it the other day. There's a bill called the Trust Act. It was first introduced a couple of years ago. It hasn't become law yet, but it is floating around out there. And so you'd think something called the Trust Act, that sounds real good,
Mhm.
right? But it's really not. What this bill would do would be to create a couple of small rescue committees. And there'd be one for Social Security, one for Medicare, and then actually one for federal highway programs. These are things that are kind of big ticket spending items at the federal level. This is all created around reducing the deficit. So these committees would actually get together, small committees, and they would create legislation and recommendations to kind of bring the costs under control for those programs. The problem is, if only 7 committee members approve those recommendations, That bill, that legislative language would get fast tracked to the full House of Representatives and the full Senate. No changes or amendments would be allowed either in the committee or on the floor. So if you think about that, it's really astonishing. The Trust Act would give 7 members of Congress the ability to target Social Security and even Medicare for cuts. Now, these are programs that are so important to so many people. We really shouldn't be proposing benefit cuts behind closed doors.
Mhm.
The American people should be part of the debate. All the members of Congress should be part of the debate. It should be a full and open discussion. There should be, public input. These are benefits that we have all earned. These are
Mhm.
not entitlements. We are not entitled to these things. We have earned these benefits. Not to mention, all members of Congress should be held accountable for any action that they take on Social Security and Medicare. So AARP is opposed to the Trust Act. Um, we do think the existing committees in Congress should take a look at some of these programs and kind of look to make sure that the benefits are adequately funded for the future. But we need to do this out in the open, and it needs to be a fully engaged discussion. We really shouldn't be doing this behind closed doors.
And Lisa, I know we're coming up to the end of the show, but I want to say always good to have you. But I think today's topic, not just because it's the birthday of Social Security, but I love that Social Security, whether you're receiving it now, whether you might receive it in the future, whether you know somebody who's getting to that age, it's just so important for people to know what's true and what's not true so that they can be better consumers when it comes to knowing about Social Security. So when someone's like, oh, they're going broke, you have the information of like, no, they're not. And this is why.
Right. Well, that's why I'm always happy to come and,
Thank you.
chat with your viewers. And
Thank
it's always a
you.
pleasure to be on your show.
And Lisa, before I let you go, thank you, Arlene. Thank you for AARP for fighting for us. Absolutely. Is there a website that you would like to reference if people are looking for additional information about AARP and Social Security?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to bring up because a lot of people don't know. So, AARP has a Social Security Resource Center, and it has information really around some of the kind of myths and facts that I've shared, but also a lot of great information about your benefits. How to
Mhm.
figure out the best time to retire. What does it mean if you work and you want to draw Social Security? So, tons and tons of questions at the AARP Social Security Resource Center,
Great.
and that website is aarp.org/social security. So clever. And then we are actually going to have some new advocacy actions around Social Security. I think people will be able to just go to our state webpage, our aarp.org/wi. And in the next couple of weeks, we're going to have a fun new little widget there, a button you can click on that will take you to a very cool site called Mobilize that will help us get people engaged in the Social Security conversation. So check both of those things out and keep up to date with what's going on around Social Security.
Great. Thank you so much, Lisa. Always good to have you. Make sure you eat some cake on Saturday. I will be joining with you in spirit. So thank you so much for joining us. And once again, happy birthday to Social Security, 86 years strong. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
And for next week's show, we will actually be having some of the 2021 AARP Community Challenge grant winners for the state of Wisconsin. So we're going to be joined by them next Thursday. We're going to be talking to them a little bit about the project that they applied for and how they will implement it. They have really cool, fascinating ideas. So love to have you back here on Thursday. Also, there are some upcoming events, of course, that we always like to recommend. So Tuesday the 17th, Smart Tech virtual workshop. So driver discover the safety benefits of new car technology. So if you're driving around a newer car and you're like, I don't know what these buttons are, this is a really great workshop for you. Also August 17th, Pasta Lovers Tour of Italy, the food historian lecture. That sounds fun. Wednesday the 18th, Movies for Grown-Ups screening Summer of Soul. And then August 19th, Building the Case for Backyard Apartments. So these are all coming up virtually. You can find them at the website below, which is pretty much the AARP Wisconsin website, or call 1-877-926-8300. We also have, once again, Small Dollar Big Impact, which is a grant program launched last year to help communities and organizations apply for a grant of up to $1,000 for cool, creative, innovative, and fresh ideas to impact your community. The next application is due August 18th. It is a pretty short application, so you still have time to fill that out. You can find that at www.aarp.org/WI and then SDBI, which stands for Small Dollar Big Impact. So once again, I want to thank Lisa so much. I learned a lot. I'm going to go on that website immediately after this to make sure that I'm getting my benefit information. But this also is a really great video that you will want to share on your Facebook or YouTube page. If you know of anybody who is receiving benefits, or maybe not even to that age, but just really valuable information, I encourage you to share this or tag them into this video so they can get the information. So thank you again so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you next Thursday. And until then, be safe.